Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. We have, I think, a really important show for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us here on the interwebs or after the fact on the podcast platforms. We have got a really fantastic guest lined up. We have got Tamarra Wieder, who is with Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood Action of Kentucky. I get the names wrong constantly, but she is just the most amazing kind of badass pro-choice warrior, which I think is important because this is a big fight that's looming right now in our nation, and she's going to give us the details about where we need to be paying attention and how we need to be responding and how we need to be engaged. We've got our political news, of course, our news of the week. Really horrible week on a lot of levels. So we'll talk a little bit about guns in Kentucky, and then Doug Price is going to bring us a bit of information about the recent primary elections, some results that we didn't get to last week, and talk a bit about kind of what the state of affairs is on progressive candidates here in Kentucky. So, but before we get into that, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? Why do we say purple? It's because this state is red. It really is red. And I don't want to lie to you. We're kernels of truth. I can't start off with a lie and say, yeah, we're going to get to blue tomorrow. It's going to take some work. We've got a goal. We've got a strategy in mind, and we'd like you to help us make it a reality. Because we have some work to do if we're going to beat back the red wave of bad politics and policy that come from the GOP supermajority in Frankfurt, from our representatives in D.C. These are folks who are making unlicensed, unsecured guns an inalienable right. They're looking to make ectopic pregnancies a death sentence for women. We need your help to fight back against that. So if you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, join Progress Kentucky. All you need to do is follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, kind of wherever you spend time on social media. Just like and share our content, comment on it, help us, juice the algorithms to make sure more folks hear about what we're doing and see the solutions we're putting forward. But before we get to our guest, I want to check in with our co-host. Tell us who you are, where you are, what does your protest sign say today? If you're watching right now live, go ahead and share what your protest sign says. There's a lot to protest right now, I feel like. And that sign, holding a sign aloft in the air is an act of hope right now. And I hope that you will take part. So I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, a community called Chilesburg, which is deed restricted, which means they have rules about what you can and cannot do. You must paint your mailbox black. You must not put your campaign signs up for longer than 30 days before the election. You must take them down promptly, or you will get a nasty letter from the HOA. So that's where I am. My sign says, Rand and Mitch have taken over $1.3 million from the NRA. The blood of Uvalde's children is on their hands. And I honestly, I'm not 100% convinced that's how you say Uvalde, but I probably pretty close. And now let's turn to my co-host for the afternoon, because we do not have Kimberly Cecil Jones with us. I know I shouldn't say that because, our viewer will probably leave because she's definitely a highlight of this effort. But I just want to let you know what you're in for. It's just me and Doug. But we got an amazing guest coming up. So just get through us, and then we'll have an amazing guest. And I still believe we've got a good show for you. So, Doug, what have you got?
I thought maybe we should have talked beforehand, and maybe we could have talked about Kimberly or something like that if she's watching the show.
She's not watching the show. What are you talking about?
She's not watching the show.
She's not watching the show.
Okay. So hi, I'm Doug from Harrison County. I have another tidbit from the Cynthiana Harrison County Chamber. Did you know that Kentucky's largest chinkapin oak tree is found in Cynthiana's own Griffith Woods? It measures in at 309 inches in circumference and 69 feet tall. I haven't been to see it, but I'm going to have to make a trip over there. My protest signs says, I'm going to hold it up here, but if not now, when? Gun control.
That's awesome. That's important. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But as we head into news of the week, what's the breaking news that you need to know about? We've got some election results. Doug, you pulled together the results last week. And so when the candidate contacted me, the winner contacted me to say, why didn't you talk about my race? I was very tempted to throw you under the bus. I'm like, well, I didn't actually, I was traveling, so I didn't really prepare the data or the information. I had so many options of who to throw under the bus, and I didn't throw anyone under the bus. Just sat there, I'm like, you're right. We'll cover it. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. That's what happens in the DMs, people. That's what happens. Are you following us on Twitter? You should be. All right, Doug, what do you got? What races are you going to break down for us?
So thanks for not throwing me under the bus.
Didn't do it.
We did talk a lot about Liberty candidates last time, and thankfully, the race that we're going to talk about is not a Liberty candidate. So the first one we're going to highlight is the District 30 House race in Jefferson County, where Daniel Grossberg took on longtime incumbent Tom Birch. Representative Birch assumed office in 1979 and is 90 years old. Apparently, he was having some health issues and did not attend some or many legislative sessions, so that was a concern for, I assume, for some voters. Mr. Grossberg is a self-described hardcore progressive who is quoted as stating that he defeated the longest-serving incumbent in the United States and the longest-serving incumbent in Kentucky history. Think about that. In this election, Greenberg won by 121 votes, and he had tried this race in 2020. He lost by 1,400 votes. And I want to say this, perseverance is what it takes, and we congratulate Mr. Grossberg for staying the course. He does not have an opponent in the general election, so he should assume office in January 2023. In this election, Greenberg won an opponent in the general election, so he should assume office in January 2023. In this election. The next one I want to highlight is Colonel Pamela Stevenson, who defeated challenger Robert Lavertus Bell in the primary with almost 54% of the vote. But there were only 4,877 voted in this House District 43. She has no challenger in the November election. It is sad that less than 19% of the people voted in the primary. Folks, we cannot continue to do this. We, the people, must vote. Colonel Pam has been on our show, and we look forward to having her on another show, possibly next month. I really enjoy watching her comments while she is discussing legislation on the floor of the House. She is fierce. I want to talk a little more about the 6th District congressional race. We did talk about that last week, but I have some new information, I would say. As we all know, this one was a shocker. Jeff Young, a perennial candidate, won this race over Chris Priest. Young had approximately 52% of the vote, and now Young faces the incumbent, Garland Hale Andy Barr IV. Young last ran against Barr in the Republican primary in June 2020. Yes, he was a Republican then, when he garnered 4% of the votes and came in third behind then Republican Chuck Eddy. Jeff Young has run at least 8 other races, including twice for governor, and has run as a Republican and under the Green Party. A reporter asked Governor Beshear, who has been sued by Young, if he would vote for Young in the general election. Beshear summed up his feelings with a solid no. Friend, supporter of Chris Priest, weighed in about the election with the following Facebook post. I've been really quiet about the recent primary loss. I'm proud of Chris Priest and the campaign he ran. Here are the facts. We had no support from the party or leadership. We didn't take out personal loans. We only lost by 1,700 or so votes. We were outspent 4-1 by Young. over 40,000 votes cast and only losing by 1,700 is a testament to Chris and our volunteers. Continuing the quote, I saw some cheap shots taken at Chris by former candidates, unlike those candidates with KDP support and flowing money. He didn't get humiliated by a landslide loss. He lost a hard-fought race. Unlike getting bombed into oblivion, he has shown great poise and restraint. He owns his loss without falsely blaming others for the outcome. My message to those perpetrating the cheap shots is this. You are obviously more comfortable in the gutter than mainstream, so stay there. I would proudly and gladly help him again. He's everything that those gutter rats could only hope to become. Young is now the KDP's problem. Let them figure it out. I want to follow that up with a post that Anna White's posted on that stream. Anna is Progress Kentucky's attorney. Chris is a lovely man and worked hard. His loss is a direct result of KDP and Democratic elected officials and experienced donors failing to get the word out that he was a candidate. Name recognition matters. The party doesn't get to pick a candidate in the primary. All we ask is that KDP list all of the candidates and their bios and websites and ActBlue accounts on KDP's website so contributors and voters know who they are. There's a quote by a pretty smart man, Albert Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I mentioned Young's other races. In his last race against Barr, he had 2,700 votes. In 2020, Andy Barr won with 216,000 votes. Over the course of Young's 8 races, he has totaled 123,000 votes. Barr will likely not spend much money over the next 5 months and will have a larger war chest when/if Chris Priest runs again in 2 years. If that happens, let's hope that the Kentucky Democratic Party steps up. Aaron, that's my update on primary races, and I welcome any input you have.
Well, yeah, the Chris Priest versus Jeff Young was absolutely a shocker, as we mentioned last week. A great, grave disappointment, and as I pointed out, like the fact that we went from Amy McGrath in 2018, who ran an incredible campaign, well-funded campaign because she was an amazing fundraiser, right? Capture the nation's attention with her like very bio-heavy effort. Maybe that worked against her ultimately, but it helped get national support for her work. It was part of course, the response to Trump, right? So it really was a blue wave election, that first midterm. She still lost by 3 points because I think, hard to prove, but I think the fact that Trump showed up 3 days, a week before the election, in Madison County, Richmond, big area of, Republican votes, made sure everyone knew that Andy Barr was his guy and needed to get out and vote for Andy Barr. I think that's the 3 points, right? The fact that the president did that. I think that presidential impact also, hurt Josh. Josh Hicks was a phenomenal candidate on so many levels, and he got blown out by far more than Amy did in the 6th district. And then, that's what you've got, right? You've seen Amy, who ran this phenomenal campaign, had offices in every county in the district, an unheard of ridiculous expense, but had actual organizers on the ground in every county because she had the money to do it. And then you see Josh Hicks, who was able to fundraise decently well. Amy supported him, made sure that he got in front of her supporters. He had enough money to run a decent campaign and got blown out of the water. And then what happened? Then they redistricted. And they made that district, which was, like by its fingernails, maybe kind of a battleground district. Maybe if you squinted, they made it one that was totally not competitive. Which, of course, Chris Priest didn't know that when we signed up to run. Jeff Young, I'm sure, didn't care because he's going to run anyway. And Chris Priest is a guy who, well-intentioned, a lot of heart, good guy, had a baby during the campaign. And he's not like, going to phone it in on raising his child. So like was hamstrung by kind of the reality. So I don't know how that's the KDP's fault. It's so fun to blame the KDP for all ills. Have you been to the KDP office? Doug, have you been there?
No, I have not been. No,
It
I've
is
never
this
been there.
horrible wreck falling down of a building that they really need to destroy and sell off. And it is like it's totally where they are. It's this testimony to like what they used to be and they're not now. And is it their fault that our state is the cultural battles have shifted and turned the tides completely? Like Kentucky is not unique, except for it, like, still is able to maybe, elect a Democratic governor. It's like Louisiana or these states that, they're just red states. And every once in a while, people pay attention to the politics and, and remember that the Republican governors are horrible for their own best interest. So like, it's tough that we do what we do because largely we need to change the landscape. And yeah, we're like some tiny little piece of it. I think the KDP folks work really hard. I've seen it firsthand. I'm probably biased, because for Andy's campaign, I was based in that office and I saw what people were doing. It's not a huge operation, all 3 or 4 of the staff. It is like, it's not like they're behind closed doors smoking cigars and whiting them with $100 bills. There's very little resources. And yeah, it's hard to recruit a bench for what is probably a kamikaze bonsai mission to lose, right? The 6th district is not currently winnable. I just really don't think it is. So like, we can beat up on the KDP all we want for what? It's a primary. I don't think we want the parties putting their thumb on the scales during a primary. So I don't know who the first, individual was that you quoted, because you didn't actually name them, but I think they just had their facts wrong. Anna White's I totally respect, and I get what she's saying, and I think that is absolutely legitimate, that we should have the name of the candidates on the KDP website, like all the candidates, put them all out there so everyone can go to the website and look, and oh yeah, Jeff Young is crazy and thinks that Ukraine is loaded with Nazis and is on Russia's side. So yeah, maybe we don't want to go with that guy. And Chris Priest has got like, well thought out progressive ideals, right? So I don't know. Betty thinks the state party is weaker than they should be. You're right. They should be stronger. I don't know. How do you make it stronger when we've got like not a lot of money? We don't have many political prospects right now. And we have cultural like tides that are really challenging. So, I concur that Democrats need to fight harder and we need to be smarter. And we need to come up with the right messages to get to voters that once supported us. But, we're up against Fox News. And I don't know if you've been out in the far regions of, anywhere. Drive half an hour out of either of our big cities and it's all Fox News, or it's talk radio, which is like Fox News and horrible. So, it's just challenging in this political landscape to fight back against that. And if you look at the numbers, Chris Priest ultimately had no chance of winning against Andy Barr. But I do think he should have beat Jeff Young, because we all should have been paying more attention. And we should have shown up for real Democrats, at least in the primary, people. Come on. So I don't know. That's my spirited defense of reality.
Well, let me add something else that I didn't put in my story. Talking about Anna White's, she held a fundraiser for Chris Priest. I think perhaps you were able to be there. I was invited, but I wasn't able to make it. But she also commented in an email to me that she let KDP know, and that they scheduled a fundraiser on the same day. It may have already been scheduled, I don't know, but had a fundraiser on the same day, same time, that around the same time where she had her fundraiser for Chris Priest. And, maybe the thought was, there's no way that Jeff Young is going to win, so it's not a race that we're concerned with, even though if you want to say Jeff Young is a Democrat, you also have to say, well, yeah, he was a Republican and he also was a member of the Green Party. So I just think that perhaps the Kentucky Democratic Party, as Anna had said, could have put information about all candidates on the website where people could go there and learn more about a candidate. So Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Absolutely. I think, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth put out their information. They're kind of like non-biased. Like they don't pick, every interview they share the information. And I read the interviews, and man, Chris Priest seemed like the reasonable candidate compared to Jeff Young. So that's how I got some of my information. Of course, we had Chris on the show, and he was somebody that was absolutely recruiting from, I think, a similar progressive base that we talked to. And I liked the guy, and it was heartbreaking to see that result. I don't know anything. I know zero details about this fundraiser that the KDP had at the same time Chris had a fun. I think Chris probably could have had about 10 more fundraisers, because I only ever got invited to one, and it seems like he probably needed some more money. And I know it's a pain in the ass to organize a fundraiser, but if you're gonna run for Congress, you need to do that because it costs money. And Jeff Young had a big billboard at a very high traffic area in Lexington. And that's what I saw about Jeff Young's campaign. And Chris Priest's campaign were, some stuff on my Facebook page and his own personal, like, reaching out to me to ask, me to help out on certain things or whatever, like that. So, like, I don't, I'm not going to fault Chris. What I am going to say is, if you want to run for Congress and if you want to win your primary, you have got to put a lot of time and energy and fundraise your ass off to make it happen. And I don't want the KDP putting their thumb on the scale, because I don't necessarily trust the KDP's judgment about which candidate is the best candidate. Like, yeah, obviously Jeff Young isn't, because he's sued the KDP and he's sued Andy Barr, and he's probably going to sue us as soon as he catches wind of this broadcast. But like, that guy, that guy's trouble, and he's troubled, and I hope that it's embarrassing. Again, it's just embarrassing to go from Andy to Josh to Jeff Young. And it is a sign, though, that the Republican domination of the state is real, and it is outside of Louisville fairly close to total, at a certain level. And I think that we need to fight back. We don't fight back with Jeff Young. We fight back with, actual smart ideas and policies that help people, and making sure that everyone understands what's happening right now in our state is because of Democrats. The positive stuff that's happening right now in our state, the investments in our state, the resources coming to our state, that's because of Democrats and their policies, because we've seen what Republicans want to do, and it's not pretty. So at any rate, that's I think we probably need to move on, because I don't want.
Could I say two quick things?
No, you can't say anything else. I'm done.
Okay.
No, yes, of course.
If Jeff sues us, we do have Anna Whites as our attorney. And a side job that I have, aside from working with Progress Kentucky, I'm on the Harrison County Democratic Executive Committee. And we had several primary races, local races, and our chair made certain that everybody got equal time. We weren't promoting one over the other, or not promoting one or promoting another, whatever. So, and I kind of understood that was coming from KDP. But
it's just the rules. It's the rules of primaries. The party can't have have an influence in the. I mean, they can provide a platform for all their candidates, and that's, of course, we should do that. And let's blame the Fayette County Democratic Party, because they're well organized and they're big, and there's a bunch of votes there. Like, why didn't they do more to make sure everyone knew that, hey, here are our candidates. You can decide who is rational and who's not. They could have done that. I think there's a lot of hesitancy about Chris, because he was, like, very much a bootstrap, like, first-time candidate. I think there were people that were waiting to see, like, is there someone else that's going to jump in here who's, like, maybe got an experienced network and is a proven fundraiser, and, like, oh, no, all right. So it's tough. It's, we got our work ahead of us, right? Like we say it every week. We've got a red tide coming at us of bad politics and bad policy from this GOP supermajority. So that's where we are. We got plenty to do. All right. I'm moving on to a little bit of good news. Because I think we all deserve a little bit of good news. Go, like, pet your dog, kiss your wife, hug your kids. We deserve some good news. And here's a little bit of political good news. Kentucky has the lowest unemployment rate in recorded history. So this is a clear sign of both Andy's impressive leadership, landing these huge industry investments in Kentucky, in addition to putting our COVID money to work for the state. with resources going to clean water, to high-speed internet, to roads. He is delivering in both jobs and in helping to share the story of an improving Kentucky to help bring these corporate investments in. I think that's a really wonderful thing. So, in addition to the Ford battery plants, the twin battery plants, another EV battery plant, there's a lot of great work that's happening right now. And, that did not happen under that other guy, right? So we definitely are seeing, I think, an improved amount of leadership. And I think anyone who wants to tackle Andy, like Cameron, or, who else is running Quarles, that's what they need to run against, is an actual demonstrated track record of improving our Commonwealth. So good story. All right, now to rapidly pivot to the horror story, right? So the senseless tragedies in Buffalo and Uvalde, Texas, over this past week, we want to just remind you how the GOP, Republican Party, is absolutely owned by the gun lobby. The past session in Frankfurt alone, the GOP supermajority passed a bill to make sure any attorney could bring a concealed gun into a courtroom. One of the last places of refuge from our insanely permissive gun laws. As of a few years ago, we are now a proud constitutional carry state, which is such garbage. Why am I saying that? Why am I embracing their messaging constitutional carry? It's garbage. It's permitless concealed carry, because we don't care who does what with their guns. No background checks at gun shows, no red flag laws in the books in Kentucky. Let's compare it. So Senate Minority Leader Morgan McGarvey, who you might have heard from our last episode, he is in fact now the nominee for the Democratic Party for the Louisville Congressional District. So he very well could be our sole Democrat in DC if things go well. So he worked across the aisle to introduce the Crisis Aversion and Rights Retention Bill that was this session to help temporarily remove guns from folks in crisis. This bipartisan bill couldn't even get a hearing. Didn't get a hearing. Meanwhile, GOP Committee Chair Ed Massey, his Bring Your Guns to Court bill, which was opposed by an enormous list of police and public safety and court support organizations. It flew through the GOP supermajority thanks to a timely veto by Governor Beshear and no clear interest from the leadership to overturn the veto. The bill is not law currently. Let's see what happens in the next session. Again, elections have consequences. So that's what happens when you force a GOP supermajority on our legislature. We are a gun crazy Commonwealth, but the NRA and the other gun rights Kool-Aid drinkers are trying to stop everything from advancing in DC. Despite all the thoughts and prayer tweets from Republicans, they are blocking any efforts to close background check loopholes or do anything else to keep our nation from having any and all guns available on demand. Despite the just ending list of school shootings here in Marshall County, in Parkland and Sandy Hook, now in Uvalde, Texas, Kentucky senators have taken over $1.3 million in direct campaign contributions or legalized bribes from the NRA. 1.3 million between Mitch and Rand. They have been solid investments, though, for these gun manufacturers. They have faithfully advanced their agenda with this newest horrific mass murder. Progress Kentucky is demanding Mitch and Rand donate that money to charity. Maybe Moms Demand Action, maybe the Brady Center, the Giffords Legal Center. I obviously do not want them to give the money back to the NRA. We should not, no one should give the NRA a red dime right now. But most importantly, beyond the contributions, the blood money that the NRA has given to them, they need to go directly to Chuck Schumer to bring the background checks bills to the Senate floor immediately. These are, background check bills. These are like two loopholes they want to close to make sure everyone who purchases a gun has a background check, a recent background check. So this is stuff that is supported by the vast majority of gun owners. This is not a come and grab your guns law. This is not an assault weapons ban, which I think we should probably do as well. But this is like very basic stuff like just the minimal amount of gun safety legislation. It's passed the House already. It's stalled out in the Senate because of Mitch McConnell. Because of Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has stopped any background checks effort from moving forward. But he is, he's grieving right now. If you look at his Twitter feed, if you look at Rand and him's Twitter feed, they're very concerned about what happened. They're very sad about what happened. So they should fix it. They should do this one little thing, this tiny little infinitesimal move towards safer schools by making it just a little harder, a few more speed bumps along the route to getting an AR-15. But we'll see what happens. Late last night, as I was kind of fighting the hopelessness and looking at my daughter's faces as I geared up to take them to their final days of school in the wake of this tragedy, I decided to write an online action, along these very lines. So please click through, send your emails to your senators right now. It's an important issue, obviously, and it's one that I don't think we should give up hope on. I know it's very challenging to kind of retain any kind of kernel of hope in the wake of what we have seen. But don't let them define us. We need to keep fighting. We need to elect politicians that care about gun safety. And if we, just keep telling the truth, no one opposes background checks. Some people on the internet do. Read the comments. They're there. They think it's tyranny, but they are a tiny, tiny percentage of the voting population. We can fix this if we just overcome that kind of NRA gun nut, lobbying effort. And I think our voices raised loudly can do that. So again, give them a chance to do the right thing, take this one simple step. And if they don't do it, remember in November. All right, Doug, what do you
got? Just a couple of comments. As you were talking, it reminded me of when the Second Amendment sanctuary thing was going on across the country. And I looked real quick, did a Google search. I didn't find the exact number, but over 100 of our 120 counties, county judge execs, magistrates passed this thing that says we're a Second Amendment sanctuary. We don't want you taking our guns away. And nobody wants to take guns away. We just want to get common sense gun control laws. And when do we say enough is enough? When do we draw a line in the sand and say no mas? We need to enact common sense gun control laws. And also we need to provide better mental health services. Hashtag stop the madness.
Hashtag stop electing Republicans. Fully and wholly owned by the NRA. Yeah, that's a good point. And but I get really nervous because everyone's like, "Oh, don't politicize this." Andy Barr's tweet today: "Do not politicize. We can't politicize this tragedy." I'm sorry, but if you are the politician that is standing in the way, the thing that 80% of the public wants to see happen, you know who's politicizing the issue? It's you, jackass. Yeah, this is a tough one. It hits really close to home. I hate the fact that they've made, they being Republicans and, the blood money they've taken from the NRA and the Kool-Aid that they're allowing their constituents to drink about AR-15s being in the Constitution. They have made the simple act of sending my daughters to school something that can be frightening. And that is just so wrong. So absolutely wrong. Right. Our nation is awash in guns. That's the problem. There are too many goddamn guns and any Yahoo can get one. In Kentucky, we don't have any real, rules about acquisition of these weapons because, 2A, we got the 2A, and I think the reading of the Second Amendment under the current Supreme Court reading is just garbage. I mean, I will sign up for the well-regulated militia, people. Let's do it. But there's no, there is a well-regulated militia. It is called, the National Guard. So there you can have a gun if you're in the National Guard. I think that's the only folks who need an AR-15. And otherwise, I think that it is we've been hoodwinked. I did not see Beto O'Rourke's speech today in Texas. I heard it was something. It was on my Facebook feed a couple of times, but I had to get ready for this show. So, and because he's not a Kentucky politician, I would like to see what is Charles Booker got to say about this for sure. But we need to move on. Every time, like, oh look, it's a light show. We don't have that much to cover. We'll be quick, and I don't know what happens. But man, do we fill the space. All right, so really excited now to move on to our guest. That was News of the Week. We are now moving on to Tamarra Wieder of Planned Parenthood, Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates, Kentucky. So again, I always mess up the name of the entity that she works with, but what I know is she is our state's pro-choice badass, and I'm so excited to have her with us right now to talk about what's happening in the war on wombs, the GOP war on wombs. What's the update? How are things? I know they're bleak. We're going from one kind of depressing topic to another, but I'm hopeful that you've got the action plan to give us some hope right now. Is that the case?
Yes. I think so. I hope so. I think, when we talk about Kentucky and we talk about reproductive rights, it can feel very bleak, and it can feel like we're shouting into the void where we don't see any return. But currently, abortion is still legal in Kentucky. We have been successful in stopping the implementation of House Bill 3, that big omnibus anti-abortion package that did stop abortion care in Kentucky for 8 days, the first state in the country to see care go away since Roe, which is important as we move into the future, which Planned Parenthood and other people who work within reproductive rights have been anticipating the fall of Roe for the past year. We've been talking about it. We knew it was coming. It's another thing when we saw the leak a couple weeks ago, and to see, the arguments for why they're going to pull back Roe. That, of course, none of us are really prepared to read that. But I think, what we did see across Kentucky was an uprising. We saw people from all over the Commonwealth, and we still are seeing people. I think there is an event in Pikeville this weekend. People are rising up and saying enough is enough is enough, in similar ways with other movements across the country. Kentucky is no outlier. People strongly support access to abortion, believe it or not, even in Kentucky. And I think that that's something that the right tries to take away from from us when we're talking about this issue. We can't let them manipulate the data. While we have very, of course, anti-abortion leaning legislators in office, people support access to abortion. Now, where they want limitations differs across the Commonwealth, but overwhelmingly, 65% of Kentuckians do not want to see an outright ban on abortion. And that is because Kentuckians, all of us, have experiences with pregnancy in very different ways. And so I think as we start talking about this issue, and we have to talk about this issue, we have to remove the stigma, and we have to take control back of this narrative, control that the GOP and the supermajority in Frankfort have really defined. We can't let them define our rights in their very extremist manners. But as we move into probably the end of June, we'll likely see the end of Roe. That's when we expect a decision to come out, the end of June. And Kentucky is one of 13 states that has trigger law legislation. And this is really important. I want to get this bad stuff out of the way so I can talk about proactive measures that we can do moving forward. But we have triggered legislation that was passed in 2019 that will make it so that Kentucky has a law in the books that says that if anything changes from the Supreme Court, so if Roe v. Wade changes in whole, or in part, so in any way, that becomes law of the land immediately in Kentucky. And so that will happen after the decision comes out. We will likely see abortion access decimated completely after the decision comes out the end of June. Now, what this means is patients will likely be headed to Illinois for care. I believe Indiana, it does not have a trigger law yet, but I believe that they are attempting to put in trigger law legislation at this very moment. So Illinois will be the closest place for care. And then we're not done. So we also have a constitutional amendment that will change our constitution to say that there is no right to abortion in our constitution, which will take away any legal pathway in the Commonwealth for us to fight back against the trigger law, because we can't go to court right now because the trigger law is not in effect, but we would have problems fighting back legally around the trigger law or any future legislation that may come forward out of Frankfurt, which they're not stopping with what passed this year. Representative Tate, who was the lead sponsor of House Bill 3, has already talked about banning birth control and IUDs through the mail and at universities and other public institutions. I believe that to mean maybe health departments, but she's already put that intention out into the public, and we know that the Republican Party has already talked about birth control as being a next step. So there are a lot of pieces that we are going to have to fight back against, and the constitutional amendment is something that we can win. This is something that we can tangibly win if we go out and vote. We've been doing a lot of research, and we're actually in focus groups right now. But one thing that we're seeing is that we have a pathway to victory. 1, 2, we have the majority of Kentuckians that we've polled supporting our issue, supporting the no. You need to vote no on Amendment 2. No on Amendment 2. A majority support voting no on Amendment 2. But our problem is they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk to family and friends. They don't want to get on the phones with us. They don't want to knock doors with us. There is an excitement gap, so to speak, that we have compared to our opposition, who are very motivated to get on the phones, to knock doors and do the work, even though by polling and we should win. But if they generate more voters, we'll be in some trouble. So we have an opportunity to redefine the narrative here. I feel like I talked a lot. I'm really sorry. So I can keep talking. So jump in.
No, that was really important news, because I think the constitutional amendment piece gets, like, people aren't really as aware of that. Obviously, a lot of our news now is national, so people are very aware of this kind of leaked draft opinion. And I think the idea that Roe is going away is absolutely something that people are kind of is going away, right? It seems very likely that it is going away. There could be shifts behind the scenes. Seems unlikely. Roe is going away.
Create false hope. I think it's gone. Roe is gone.
Yeah. They might change the arguments a little bit to, like, close the door on revisiting, like, gay marriage or other things, but who knows? I
think so. I think, once they take away the right to privacy, and I'm no lawyer, I think that they are opening the door for such decisions down the road. I think that with Roe, that they see an opportunity to take back previous decisions that this court wants to see repealed. And I think one of the things that we've been talking about for a year too at Planned Parenthood is we've been trying to tell people this is going to happen, and people didn't want to believe us. They said this is not going to happen. They're not going to reverse Roe. And so one of the things that I think maybe in my work, maybe I am more cynical because we've been fighting this for so long, but I don't want to give them the benefit of the doubt here. I think they're coming for a lot more positions. Because it concentrates more power in a minority's hands. We are the majority, and that's the most frustrating piece. Even with gun rights, we are the majority here. We want sensible gun control measures. The majority of the U.S. support access to abortion. 80% of Americans support access to abortion, and 65% of Kentuckians don't want to see a ban on abortion. We are a majority. And so what we have, though, is a voting gap. And that is something that we need to rectify. And it is one of the biggest, challenges. And I think one of the exciting things that we can do with this campaign, for those of you watching, you can go to www.protectkentucky.com. And then there is a coalition that has formed to fight back against the constitutional amendment. You can volunteer with us. You can donate. I mean, this is a campaign that needs to raise at least $4 million. And so this is an opportunity to get involved and change the narrative and change the way politics are run in Kentucky. You know, when I was listening to you earlier and talking about the KDP, you know, some of the things that we need to change with the KDP is being unafraid to talk about issues with conviction. What I want to see more of is honest conversations about abortion. I think there's strategic ways to have it throughout the state, but we need to own that abortion is on the line and abortion is healthcare. One of the things I saw when the Roe leak came out was the KDP decided to do some fundraising on abortion when I can't even get a meeting with them. So it's been one of those frustrating moments where it's like, come and talk to us, meet with us, work with us on the campaigns, come and train your candidates to talk about this effectively. Don't tell them to run away from the issue. You literally can't. It's on the ballot.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, and I think they put it on the ballot for a reason. They, you know, they thought it was going to help them. You know, that kind of that voting gap, I think, is real. They're banking on it. That enthusiasm gap is real, and they're banking on it. You know, and I think, you know, the fact is that abortion is something that has affected so many people's lives, right? And the vast majority of them is for the better. You know, it helped women out of positions that either were threatening to their health, threatening to their future, their ability to have a non a limited future, and it's staggering to me that, you know, this has been vilified to such a degree, right? The fact that women can have some choice about when they give birth to a child, that somehow that this, you know, the zygote has more rights than the woman, is staggering to me, and it is, you know, it's a problem. And I, you know, it is absolutely something that, you know, what is it? 1 out of 3 women,
1 out of 4 have had an abortion by the time they're 45, and you know, research is showing that we'll likely see an increase of 22% of maternal mortality across the board in states that outright ban abortion, and 33% increase in maternal mortality for Black women. And so Kentucky already has a terrible maternal mortality rate. We're one of the highest in the country with double the national incidence. So we are further, you know, we're further compounding upon health crises that we face here at home in the Commonwealth. And one of the things I think is really important to note, you know, we're not going to have exemptions for rape and incest. We're not going to have exemptions for fetal anomalies. And when we talk about life of the mother, I think it's important to note that that's going to be a determination that's made by lawyers that take time. And you also have to have, you know, various providers agree that aren't connected with each other. And hospitals are going to be so afraid to make these determinations. And then you're also going to need the doctors who are trained to do this. You are going to drive providers out of the state who can do this. And we know what happens. We've seen this all across the world. As really Catholic countries are opening up and easing restrictions on abortion because they've seen what happens. People die waiting for those medical emergencies to be resolved. They go, you know, women and people go septic. And so we are going into a really bleak health frontier when it comes to reproductive access. And then with birth control being on the line as well. Now, it's unfathomable, and it's time for people to stand up and fight back with us. It can be pretty lonely in Frankfurt.
I'm sure that's true. You know, I want to just say thank you for the work that you do, that you have done, that you continue to do. We will proudly stand with you at Progress Kentucky, whatever we need to do to spread the word. You said, you know, protectkentucky.com. It's on the screen now. Please do go. Please make a donation. Please engage however you're capable. You know, talk to your, like, again, abortion care is health care. The fact that 1 every 4 women has one, you know, a lot of those are based solely on health needs, and to take that away or to add additional hoops for, you know, women to jump through is just wrong. And, you know, it is really, I think, ultimately about control, and it's about, you know, way easier to, you know, keep women powerless if they are forced to conceive every child, you know, give birth to every child that's conceived. And I think it is really something that, you know, we do need to stand up and, and claim that space a little bit more and not be ashamed of the fact that this is something that needs to remain an option for women. The idea that, an ectopic pregnancy can become a death sentence is just truly terrible.
I will say, I don't want to confuse anybody in Kentucky right now. This may come here, but we currently don't have that legislation that would criminalize ectopic pregnancy. So I do want to put that out there. I don't, that you can currently cross state lines and you can get access for ectopic pregnancy. Other states are limiting that, and that doesn't mean that it won't come here, though.
No, it seems like they haven't stopped. Have we stopped a single bill in Kentucky? Like whatever ideas they come up with of what kind of hurdles they want to put in front of the access to the procedure, it seems like they pass through pretty easily in Frankfurt.
They do. We have been able in the past, but now with the acknowledgement, they know that Roe was going to fall. That's why the omnibus package went. And we may see some things that they missed next year, in addition to birth control and IUDs and further restrictions on reproductive health care. I'm sure will come down next year. We're not done.
Some new creative thinking might be happening across the country that they can import.
But that's why we need to give ourselves a victory and vote no on Amendment 2 and come join us in that fight.
Absolutely. So that'll be on the ballot November 8th. You're heading out there to vote against Rand Paul. You're heading out, that is absolutely something that you're going to need to decide about, and not just, decide while you're in the booth, but spread the word, let people know it's there, let people know what it means. And again, go to protectkentucky.com to add your support and help this really important effort to stop that amendment. Doug, any questions you got for our guest?
Just a quick question. I know this is something that we're going to be watching leading up to the November vote. And I know all of us are probably going to be inundated with flyers telling us how we should vote. And do you have an idea of any national organizations that you've already identified that are going to be fighting to try to get this constitutional amendment passed?
Sure. So Right to Life is already working on it. They have a campaign already. It went live last year around the same time our campaign went live. The Family Foundation, we've seen nationally, we're one of 3 ballot initiatives that are doing the same constitutional amendment. Kansas is the closest to ours. They have theirs is actually a primary that they vote on their constitutional amendment. It's in August, but the Catholic Conference has donated, I believe, over $2 million into that campaign. And so we do expect that to be very similar here as well, depending on how that ballot initiative measures up, if it passes or fails. And we'll know about that in August. We'll also likely be seeing other big pack, probably ALEC and them probably coming in on some levels. However, I think what Kentucky constantly does with abortion politics is underestimate Kentuckians on this issue. And while they may vote in Republican leadership, it doesn't mean that they stand with them in all of their issues. Right. And when we do research, when I'm in the communities, I'm not afraid to go into rural communities and talk about abortion, because people have experiences with abortion and they know the importance of reproductive health care. And so this issue, I think, is a miscalculation on their part.
That's wonderful. Let's hope so. Let's work to make it so. There's no excuse for people not to weigh in on this, share the information with their family that abortion care is health care, and it really is about keeping women safe and giving them the ability to make important decisions about their future and when they want to have children. So thank you so much for joining us. As always, you're always welcome back if there's anything that you think we're missing or getting wrong, or just want to underscore as this campaign heats up. I do hope you will come back to remind folks how important it is to have your plan for November 8th.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great evening.
Thank you. We appreciate your work.
All right, so we're going to close out now. I think we have got a call to action that is really important, right? So we mentioned our gun petition that we started right now to Rand Paul and to Mitch McConnell to demand they donate all their NRA blood money to gun safety groups. So you should do that one. Annabelle, if you could throw that link in the chat, that would be wonderful. That's an important one. And then the other one is that our poll is still live. So we have got our poll. We are trying to figure out what are the worst actions or inactions that this past session took the GOP supermajority. Was it the war on teachers and public education? Was it the abortion omnibus? What was the worst of the worst in terms of what they were up to in Frankfurt? So we need to tell that story. It's really important that that story gets told. What we're shooting for is 500 responses, which I think we're over 200. But we got some work to do. So share that with your friends and your family and your neighbors, and folks who are like barely engaged in politics. Those are the perfect people to share it with, so they can look at this list of 10, 15 issues that the GOP supermajority took action on or chose inaction on, and just get confronted with how horrible and out of step with the public and our needs are. So that's absolutely something that we really need you to engage in. We appreciate your support on that. I'm also seeing in the comments there's a walkout that is happening on the issue of gun safety. It looks like Students Demand Action are having a walkout. And then let's see. There's a Wear Orange Day happening in Frankfurt. So that is happening on Tuesday, May 31st at noon at City Hall. Come join Moms Demand Action if you can. That's the Wear Orange effort. So lots of stuff happening right now on gun safety. Obviously, the nation is just fed up, and I think it's really critically important that everyone take action and do it however you can. Do it as often as you can. Don't let the kind of Andy Barr effort to we can't politicize the tragedy. Don't let that win the day, because what they are really buying for is time, right? Just we are like goldfish in a goldfish bowl, and our ability to retain what's happening is a little underwhelming, right? So we're outraged now. They're just banking on us forgetting by the time we made a couple circles of the goldfish bowl. We can't forget. We have to keep their feet to the fire. We have to demand they give that money up, the blood money from the NRA, and that we need to ensure that simple popular steps, like closing background check loopholes. That's we're not asking to take anyone's guns. We're just asking to have some sensible speed bumps along the way to slow down these mass shootings and to diminish the number that we're seeing and experiencing. So all right, I think that's our show. I don't know, Doug, if you want to read out the kind of last bits, our close, that would be wonderful.
Sure.
If you're up for it. Fantastic.
I'll be happy to do that. We'll be back next week, joined again by Kentucky Teacher of the Year, Mount Sterling's Willie Carver. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4. We're affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. The logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. Production this evening was by Annabelle Nagel. Thanks so much for your help getting Kernels of Truth out to the people, Annabelle. The Jones Report is a weekly live national, local news, talk, and conversation show that occurs every Sunday at 7 p.m. It's hosted by Mike Breuer, Betsy Foster, and Kimberly Cecil Jones. The Jones Report radio program can be found on Facebook at the Jones Report Radio. Thank you, Nate, for the theme songs. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you missed our weekly live stream on Facebook, don't worry. You can rewatch shows and see our source links on Facebook. Our audio podcast available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for joining us this week, and we hope to see you next week.